I now get to introduce one of the most effective agents of that voice, Ryan Bomberger. If you hadn't had a chance to hear Ryan speak yet, you are in for a treat. Ryan has an incredible personal story that has propelled him on to use his creative talents to be a wonderfully effective voice for the preborn, and also for the dignity and true equality of every human being. Ryan is the Emmy Award-winning Chief Creative Officer of the Radiance Foundation. He was the creative force behind the first nationwide ad campaign to expose the abortion industry's hugely disproportionate impact in the Black community. The bold TooManyAborted.com billboard and online campaign made an unexpected impact in the pro-life movement. Working in conjunction with noted national civil rights leaders like Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ryan continues to be involved in national efforts to expose and defund Planned Parenthood by illuminating their human rights injustices. He's a broadcast media designer, a producer, a columnist, a passionate factivist, an international public speaker, and the author of the powerful book, Not Equal: Civil Rights Gone Wrong. His regularly published articles address the cultural dynamics of abortion, adoption, eugenics, fatherlessness, natural marriage, racism, Black Lives Matter, poverty, LGBT issues, judicial activism, free speech, and religious liberty. He's joining us tonight from Virginia, so I'm going to now toss the virtual mic over to Ryan Bomberger.
Thank you, Mark, and everyone at the Right to Life of Indianapolis. I agree with you. I wish we could all be there in person, but thank heaven for backup plans, right? In the middle of all of this chaos. I just want to say to the students who are part of the essay contest and the artwork contest, keep going. Congratulations, Emma, and to all the other student winners. This is how you shift culture. You don't have to wait until you're 20 or until you're 25, until you're 35. Shift culture today. I remember one of my first speeches, my first efforts in pro-life advocacy was in 8th grade. It was a persuasion speech after I'd learned how I came to be. And so I'm just going to tell you, be courageous. Who cares if you're the only one? Because courage doesn't need a crowd. It just needs conviction. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of young people out there who have really strong convictions about life. So my wife and I are really passionate about shifting culture. That's why we started the Radiance Foundation about 10 years ago. We wanted to equip people to engage in these culture shifting, culture shaping issues. And so many, we felt, were unprepared or unwilling to engage in conversations that are so crucial. So as a creative professional, I worked 13 years in the ad agency world. My wife was a teacher for 13 years and still is a teacher, homeschooling teacher. But she taught in public and private schools. And we wanted to create content to help engage in these conversations. Whether you're talking about memes, videos, factivist articles, infographics, I mean, the list goes on and on. We are just passionate about bringing context and clarity to all kinds of social issues. And of course, predominantly the issue of life, because without life, nothing else matters. And so this is why we do what we do through the Radiance Foundation. We're motivated by love. 1 Corinthians 13:6 says, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. And so one of the things that we've created too, so that we don't have to work so hard in changing the minds of adults on the issue of life, on the issue of abortion, is we created an incredible illustrated children's book. Actually, I'm going to brag on my wife for a little bit. It's called Pro-Life Kids. Yes, prolifekids.com is where you can get the book. There's nothing out there like it. It teaches young children actually what they already feel and what they already know. Kids are naturally pro-life. They have to be taught that it's somehow okay to harm another human life. But see, we have to teach them before a broken world reaches them. So my wife, Bethany Bomberger, is a first-time children's author, and Pro-Life Kids book is a great resource and a great tool to engage children so that we aren't working doubly hard to undo the craziness that the world instills in our young people. Tonight I'm talking about the social injustice of abortion. It is the issue that's at the top of people's minds, even though mainstream media tries to ignore it, and every year they keep talking about, oh, it's resurfaced. No, it's never resurfaced. It's always been at the top. Because when you're talking about the killing, the unjust killing of innocent human life, that should always be the main issue. Now, of course, when we talk about the social injustice of abortion, I want to make sure that we're defining terms so we're on the same page. Abortion is the intentional killing of a preborn or partially birthed human life. In the latest reported year, which is 2017, 862,230 precious human lives were wiped out. That's 2,362 precious lives every day. That's 98 lives killed each hour. And that's 2 precious human lives every minute in America. The social injustice of abortion. But see, what is justice? How do we define justice? Because people have all kinds of definitions for justice. But I love how Webster Dictionary defines it this way. It's conformity to truth, fact, or reason. Without truth, you cannot have justice. Now, here's my favorite form of justice, in the form of a really cute boy. This is my youngest son, Justice. He's adopted, and he is loved like crazy. Life is never picture perfect.
Life is never picture perfect. Human beings come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and abilities. No matter how much we plan, no matter how much we think we're prepared, the unplanned happens all the time. It's how we respond to the unexpected that shows our true humanity. But many do not see the value of every human life. Too many are willing to discard those who don't fit the picture of perfection. Abortion destroys the chance to love and to be loved. We never know what will fill the frames of our lives, or how empty those frames can be when we allow exceptions.
Every life is a gift.
Every life is a gift. Call me a radical, call me an extremist. This is what I believe. This is the truth that I'm going to keep preaching. I grew up in a family that so many in the world would just write off. So many of my siblings who were adopted, including me, would be written off and discarded simply because we didn't fit the picture of perfection. And it's amazing how easily people will write off a human life because it doesn't fit whatever that expectation is. See, my family started off small, which I guess every family has to start off small. But here you can see my parents and my 3 older siblings, the 3 biologically related kiddos, the homemade ones, whatever you want to call them. But see, my parents knew before they even got married that this was not going to be the end of the picture. In fact, they knew before they got married that they wanted to adopt. They wanted to love those that the world says would not be loved simply because they were unplanned or because they were disabled or some other reason or excuse. And they loved every one of us. So you have to ask yourself the question when you talk about the social injustice of abortion, but what about adoption? I mean, talking about abortion and not talking about adoption is like not finishing a sentence. You can't have one without the other. And if you compare the two, tragically, one, we don't have national stats on adoption that are kept federally. That's a crime in and of itself. But the last reported year that any study is done by the National Council on Adoption shows that there were about 111,000 adoptions. That same year, there were over 900,000 abortions. We have to do better as a nation. We have to do better. So when I think about adoption, what it does in the natural and the supernatural is it brings wholeness and healing and restoration. And that's exactly what it did in our family. I love this picture because this picture to me just, even the title of it says it all. The journalist actually got it. One of the rare interviews my parents ever did. And I love this. This is our family when we were still small, family of 8. And you can see the title says, "Unwanted children find their wanted." There is no such thing as an unwanted child. Some of us may have been unwanted by a biological parent or parents, but we are all wanted by someone. And we were absolutely wanted by Henry and Andrea Bomberger. This is all of us. This is all the siblings. We're white and we're black. We're white and black, Native American, Vietnamese. Some of us were adopted as babies. Some of us adopted as toddlers. Some adopted as teens out of the foster care system. Every single one of us loved like crazy. Everyone in this picture has special needs. And I'm talking beyond the physical disabilities that some of my siblings have, some of the learning disabilities, but special needs, the ones that every one of us has. And that is to love and to be loved. And one of the things I learned growing up in a family like this, obviously we don't look alike, but one of the most powerful things that I learned is that Look, I love these different hues of skin, right? But it doesn't define us. One of the most powerful lessons I learned is this, and one of the most foundational truths in the Radiance Foundation is that we are one human race. One human race. It's not a call to be colorblind. Don't be colorblind. If you are colorblind, I'm not talking about the actual colorblindness, but I'm saying don't be colorblind. I know people mean well when they say this, but God created all these colors, not for us to separate ourselves by, but to celebrate each other. Adoption unleashes purpose, but self-sacrifice unleashes purpose. And it was the self-sacrifice of my parents loving all of us that helped unleash our own individual destinies. And it was the courage of birth moms. In fact, I want to show you a picture of what unwanted looks like. This is just my family, my brothers, my sisters, their spouses, and their children. There are no aunts and uncles, although there's one little grandma in the middle of the picture. But I want to show you a picture of what unwanted looks like. Right here. This is what supposedly unwanted looks like. This is what happens when you defy the world's low expectations. This is what happens when you see adoption as a form of justice. It's not the answer to abortion, but it's part of the answer to abortion. And this picture is made possible because of many courageous birth moms who chose to be stronger than their circumstances. See, that's the whole thing. The whole thing about justice is that there has to be love that is the compelling force behind it. Otherwise, you're pushed in the wrong direction. Now, I never met my birth mom. I did search for her years and years ago, and the search came up negative, meaning that there was no response. But over the years, as a creative, I've tried so many times and in so many ways to thank my birth mom. I mean, what do you even say to a woman who went through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy? But my birth mom's singular decision will literally have reverberations for generations. And so I created this video, the things I've been able to become in my life. I wrote the lyrics and sung the lyrics to the song, hoping that maybe one day, maybe even online, that she would see this, that she would understand my heart and my gratitude, all because of that one decision made so many years ago when she chose to be stronger than her circumstances.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance. You gave my life a chance. Touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
You see, I am that 1% that's used 100% of the time to justify abortion. I mean, anytime you talk about the social injustice of abortion, you have to ask yourself the question, well, what about rape? What about rape? Planned Parenthood exploits it all the time. I mean, they've been sued in state after state for not reporting rape, so you pretty much know what their stance is on it. But they will exploit the mess out of something so tragic, so horrific, so violent. They do that all the time. But see, the circumstances of our conception don't change the condition of our worth. None of us control the circumstances of our conception. I mean, if you did, that'd be really weird because no one has that power. But yet we somehow stand over those whose circumstances don't fit in that right category. And we pretend to be the arbiters of human value based on the circumstances of someone's conception. I wrote an article about this to give a little more context to the issue. And what I found was actually kind of surprising. All the travels that I do, and I work with a lot of rape survivors, a lot of mothers who became pregnant through rape. So whether those who chose to parent, those who chose to place for adoption, or those who are post-abortive, there was one common thread, actually with so many of them. And that is the child is the only redemptive part of such a horrific act. So I wrote this article called The Heart Cases. I am not the rapist's child. You can check that out at radiance.life/theheartcases. And it just gives you a better understanding of rape-related pregnancy and the way that it's so tragically exploited. Now, what about human rights? It's a very interesting question because people want to talk about human rights as if it's based on something that is universal. And one person's concept of human rights is very different than another person's concept of human rights. But let's go with the concept that the United Nations conveyed. In fact, if you go to the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, established in 1948 as a result of the Holocaust, the horrific atrocities of the Holocaust. But in 1948, the UN, this is a founding document, says this in their preamble: recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Amen. And later on in that declaration, in Article 3, it says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. So what they don't do is the semantics game that people play now. That human being is not yet a person. Oh, really? Because every human is a person, every person is a human, period. Then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what about women's rights? We hear that all the time. Of course, we hear all kinds of euphemisms in place of abortion, women's rights being one of them. But it's interesting. Let's go to some of the founding feminists like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton, who in their periodical, The Revolution, had this to say about abortion. And not just illegal abortion, they were just saying this about abortion in general. You can see the title of their article here. They called it child murder. That's pretty unambiguous. Founding feminists, and many others, founding feminists, they didn't mince words. I mean, there were many other founding feminists who felt the same way, Alice Paul being one of them. They rejected that. And interestingly, the one feminist that's praised all the time because she's the mother of the birth control crusade, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, who had just a vile outlook on life, a vile worldview because she embraced the racism and the elitism of eugenics. She grew up in poverty, and so sadly, she saw human beings as a problem to eliminate instead of precious people who needed to be elevated. And so, ironically, the mother of Planned Parenthood actually didn't like abortion either. Now, she was a duplicitous woman, so she would often say things in public and do something else in private. But there's a quote from her from chapter 10 in her book, Women in the New Race. And she says this, quote, hundreds of thousands of abortions performed in America each year are a disgrace to civilization. Yes, they are a disgrace. So I guess that would mean that Planned Parenthood is a disgrace to civilization because Planned Parenthood has committed over 345,000 abortions in their last reported year. In 1938, there's a brochure here from Margaret Sanger's Planned Parenthood. And she even admits it's a brochure about birth control. And one of the questions on it, you can see here, it says, is it an abortion? And right here, once in a while, truth actually would actually eke out of Planned Parenthood. And it says, abortion kills a life after it has already begun. They knew that back in 1938, yet they deny it today. See, it's amazing what happens, though. Fast forward a few years, when your business model changes. Now they're declaring abortion as health care, that abortion is essential care. Abortion is health care. Let me just put it this way. If abortion is health care, then slavery was job care. Okay? Let's stop with the crazy semantics, the crazy euphemisms. Abortion is not healthcare. Abortion is fake health, 100%. In fact, I encourage you to check out one of our resources on that, radiance.life/fake health. And it just illuminates whether you're talking about preterm births, which are significantly increased by previous induced abortions, or you're talking about triple negative breast cancer being significantly increased. This is from the National Cancer Institute. I mean, there are so many adverse and negative effects and consequences of abortion, but yet women aren't told. So when you talk about women's rights, don't they have the right to know? Here's the thing. Every major medical service to women has been plummeting at Planned Parenthood for over 10 years. These are the things that fake feminists don't want to respond to. They don't want to answer. Like, are you okay with the fact that major medical services are plummeting? I mean, breast cancer screenings are down 68% in the last 10 years. Pap tests down 72%. Prenatal care, which barely even exists at Planned Parenthood, down 76%. But you know what's not down? Abortion. Abortion is up 4% in the last 10 years. And here's the thing. 10 years ago, Planned Parenthood served 600,000 more clients per year. So today, they serve 600,000 less clients per year, but their funding has increased by hundreds of millions. And if you see here on the fact sheet, their profits are up 600%. It's amazing. Less care, fewer clients, more profits. What a crazy, great business model if you're an abortion chain.
They love to tell ya, abortion's so good for ya. Just pay your fee and get equality. Their fraud's extensive, their lies defenseless. Planned Parenthood's been counting for a century. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
This is basic health care.
Thousands of women die before Roe every year.
We're not political. Planned Parenthood, we're nonpartisan.
Planned Parenthood is
fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
Hopefully you'll sing that jingle the rest of the night. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we love to create at the Radiance Foundation, because sometimes you have to laugh at the lunacy that is out there. But in the end, we have to understand too that we are, as far as the industry, we're going to be relentless about exposing the industry, but we're always loving and compassionate toward the individual, even those who are in the abortion industry, because they need to be rescued too. We talk about the social injustice of abortion. There's so many aspects to it, and one of the most powerful and disturbing aspects is this. Well, what about racism? Because we hear about white supremacy. Well, if you want to dismantle white supremacy, I've got a suggestion for you right here. Planned Parenthood is the leading killer of black lives. The leading killer. They kill an estimated 360 black lives every single day. The top 15 causes of death combined don't even match up to the number of abortions, the number of lives lost from abortion. It is the number one killer in the black community. In fact, you wonder why. It's the only healthcare disparity that's celebrated. I mean, who celebrates heart disease? Who celebrates cancer? But you're going to celebrate this negative health disparity where abortion rates are about 5 times higher in the black community than the majority population. In New York City, more black babies are aborted than born alive. For every 1,000 born alive, 1,033 are aborted, and it's celebrated as reproductive justice. What? This is what happens when you get sin supremacy in your head, because you'll repeat this kind of garbage, that somehow it's an act of reproductive justice, that the black demographic is actually the only demographic where there are more induced deaths than births. In fact, this is why Planned Parenthood can tweet nonsense like this. If you're a black woman in America, it's statistically safer to have an abortion than to carry a pregnancy to term or to give birth. What? So woke and so blind. Years ago, when we first started the Radiance Foundation, we decided we were going to tackle two of the easiest subjects possible: race and abortion, combine them in Atlanta, and put out this billboard campaign. It was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my life. We put out this campaign, TooManyAborted.com, and one of the first billboards said, "Black children are an endangered species, TooManyAborted.com. More endangered by death by abortion than any other cause." And it was the most covered billboard campaign, I believe, of all time. New York Times, USA Today, CNN, MSNBC, the entire online news blogosphere, whatever you want to call it. It was insane. It was insane. And yet they would call it conspiracy. And I remember the New York Times journalist called and interviewed me and was asking, well, where'd you get all these numbers? This is all conspiracy. I think these are all numbers from the CDC. These are numbers from the pro-abortion Guttmacher Institute, which was started by Planned Parenthood. We're not making up these numbers. These numbers are out there. The history is out there. The targeting of the black community, which has been part of Planned Parenthood's DNA since they began, particularly of poorer black communities, it's no secret. And yet we were denounced. We were called racists. In fact, we were denounced in a documentary that Planned Parenthood put out there. I call it a crockumentary because pretty much it's a crock. So they put out this 20-minute documentary featuring African Americans extolling the greatness of Planned Parenthood. Not that Planned Parenthood actually solves anything, but they end the lives of the most vulnerable black lives. But don't worry, they're going to put out a 20-minute crockumentary celebrating how great they are in the black community in a video titled A Vital Service, meaning abortion is a vital service. It's a needed service in the black community. Just listen to a short clip of this and, don't open your mouth too wide at the end. It's crazy.
Millions of Americans have stories. So we got on a bus, brought a camera, and let people speak for themselves. We listened to patients, to healthcare providers, to those who have been on the front lines, and those worried about the next generation.
And they're all over the country. And you may know that there are forces out there that have been trying to destroy Planned Parenthood. We saw one of those forces not too long ago, and you know that I was involved when they put some billboards right over here off of I-75 that said black children, an endangered species. But we are not a species. We are God's children, created in God's image. It's Planned Parenthood. It helps me to be a better pastor.
Did you catch that? Okay, call me crazy, but I thought the Bible made pastors better pastors, not Planned Parenthood. But see, only in the twisted, mixed up world of the abortion industry can you get a pastor to say things like that. By the way, that Reverend Timothy McDonald that you just saw in that clip is a board member. He's a board member of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. It explains that. I mean, here you've got Planned Parenthood constantly defending its racist DNA. And they want to, recently they talked about they're going to change the name of some of their clinics. They're going to remove Margaret Sanger's name. You can remove her name all you want. Changing your name doesn't change your DNA. But yet, Planned Parenthood Federation of America continues to try to defend Margaret Sanger. It's so bizarre. This Wall Street Journal op-ed where in defense of Margaret Sanger on eugenics is written by the newest president of Planned Parenthood, Alexis McGill Johnson, who really has no use for facts. But if you're, leading an organization that aborts human beings every day, you're going to abort basic history too. But it's so insane. So while the Planned Parenthood Federation of America is trying to defend Margaret Sanger, you've got affiliates who are calling her out. In fact, this is one from Planned Parenthood of Greater New York from just this past summer. They had their CEO fired. They went to the Planned Parenthood board who didn't do anything about it for 18 months. They got tired of this, so they posted an online letter, 300 employees of Planned Parenthood. And they make this assertion, just reaffirming what pro-lifers have been saying for a long time. And they say this: Planned Parenthood was founded by a racist white woman. That is part of history that cannot be changed. If only they understood that racism took the tangible form of killing more black babies than are born alive in that same state. We decided that we were going to continue our billboard campaign and highlight the hugely disproportionate impact of abortion in the black community, where abortion rates are up to 5 times higher. And so we did this billboard campaign in the San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland Bay Area, a really conservative area there. And we placed these black and beautiful TooManyAborted.com billboards talking about how men need to step up to fatherhood, highlighting the resources that are available from the pregnancy centers to the maternity homes to other parachurch organizations that were resources to those facing unplanned. And of course, we highlighted the history of eugenics and the specific targeting of Planned Parenthood or by Planned Parenthood. Woo! So our black and beautiful TooManyAborted.com billboards, about 60 of them, I believe, that we placed in that area. We were denounced by the ACLU. We were denounced by Planned Parenthood. We were denounced by pro-abortion politicians, so that's all predictable. But we were also denounced by the NAACP. The NAACP, an organization that I grew up revering, well, I kind of lost my love for the NAACP as I continued to research and figure out why aren't they on our side. In fact, they called our billboard campaign horribly racist and that it gave the false impression that Planned Parenthood kills black babies. Planned Parenthood kills black babies, white babies, and every hue in between. Over 345,000 last year. So I wrote an article about the NAACP and I found out that they passed a resolution supporting abortion. In fact, the resolution followed the signing of George W. Bush's signing of the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act. So that was their foray into abortion advocacy, was, to protest partial birth abortion ban. Are you kidding me? And plus, at the time that I wrote this article, the president of NAACP, Benjamin Jealous at that time, was keynoting a $1,000 a plate dinner for Planned Parenthood in Georgia. But the NAACP had the audacity to lie in court and say that they have a neutral position on abortion. They've never taken a position on abortion. So I wrote this article about the NAACP, and let's just say they didn't like it. The National Association for the Abortion of Colored People. Yeah, so this is how my article went, and it was not a very flattering article. I used the NAACP's own documentation. So here, they didn't like the article, so they sued me personally, and they sued the Radiance Foundation. 2 years in federal court, being sued by a civil rights organization, suing a brown guy for exercising one of my most basic civil rights, free speech. Not only was it free speech, it was honest speech. But they sued us 2 years in federal court. We were represented by Alliance Defending Freedom. And I'm going to tell you, young people and those of you who still feel young, or you don't have to feel young, but never be silenced. Sometimes fighting for the truth can be a terrifying thing. By the way, we won the lawsuit on appeal. Just want to let you know. Victory. But this guy right here, my childhood hero, in addition to my parents, love my mom and dad like crazy, but he inspired me to be the factivist that I am, to be the journalist, the writer, the author that I am. I mean, he embodied fearlessness. Former slave, an abolitionist, someone who helped reshape the mind of President Lincoln. And he had a choice then with the fake news establishment that refused to tell the truth about slavery. So he could have just thrown his hands up and said, I can't do anything about it. I mean, the powerful, they're too powerful. Or, like he did, you do something about it. He started his own newspaper called the North Star. And he said, I see before me a life of toil and trials, but justice must be done. The truth must be told. I cannot be silent. I know Right to Life of Indianapolis feels the same way. We don't have the luxury of being silent. When 2 precious human lives every minute in America are being wiped out because they're not considered human enough, they're not considered worthy enough of life, come on. We can't be silent. And I think of Frederick Douglass and all that he sacrificed and the fact that he pursued truth no matter the consequences. Think about this too, because slavery would not have been abolished without Frederick Douglass. I mean, literally, I would be on an auction block near you if Frederick Douglass was not in that mix. And think about this. Frederick Douglass was also conceived in rape. I wrote this book as a result of my surreal experience being sued by the NAACP. Not equal, civil rights gone wrong. I just talk about how the civil rights industry has been hijacked. I talk about a myriad of social issues, bringing you context and clarity because that brings freedom. It brings freedom. And that's what we're all about. The social injustice of abortion is no match for the beautiful possibility that every human life carries. Whether you're planned, unplanned, able, disabled, red, yellow, black, brown, or white, we have to ask ourselves, what about beautiful possibility? I think of the singular decision that my birth mom made so many years ago. She never could have known what would unfold. She could never know what those reverberations were. But because she chose to be stronger than her circumstances, she set off a course of events that she could not have possibly have planned. And those most beautiful reverberations from her singular decision, they're right here. Right here, the most beautiful reverberations, my family. They call us the Bombs, the Bombergers. And you can see here from left to right, my youngest daughter, Aaliyah, my oldest daughter, Ray Ray, my wife, the love of my life, Bethany, my oldest son, Makai, my youngest son, Justice. Now, that video that you saw that I made earlier, that I showed earlier, that had all the things I've been able to become in my life by the grace of God, my youngest daughter, Aaliyah, was 10 at the time. She's 11 now. But she came in my little studio and loved the song. She said, "Oh, I love that song, Dad. Can I sing to that?" And up until that point, she would never sing in front of other people. So anytime she offered to sing, I was always willing to record because she just would. She has this amazing voice. She comes up with her own harmonies. And I thought, okay, yes, please sing. So, I get her all set up, and she's got the headphones on, and she says, what words should I sing, Dad? I said, well, baby girl, just sing whatever comes to mind. So I just hit record. She just comes up with the lyrics. She comes up with the harmonies. And while she's singing, I'm just losing it because I'm thinking this little girl with this incredible gift, she exists because my birth mom chose to be stronger than abortion. My family exists because of that singular decision. So she's singing and I'm crying and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But I just want her words and her little song just to speak hope to you in what may seem like an impossible battle. But you know what? Impossible is nothing.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine through me. Oh, shine through me. Shine.
Together, we can end the social injustice of abortion. When you give to Right to Life of Indianapolis, you help the truth to shine, and you make lives like mine and my children possible. God bless.